language, besides being or offering this the terminology that comes with it, that can be understood or used as a way of world grasping, or grasping the world in the structural terms. It is for me also a way of thinking about when formulating text. Here it obviously depends on whether the language is native or foreign, natural language, or another communication code, cultural code. That can be anything from the Morse alphabet to, let's say, costumes, ornaments, or whatever. So it depends on the code, and it depends on the situations, as well as many other factors. But when we speak, or if I speak, or if I shall speak about language as a means or tool of helping think about text formulation, about how it comes into being, and how language, what the position of the language is, then maybe we can make, or the following distinction can be made, which in no case is the only one, but again, for some illustrative purposes, it could go like this. So first we can take it from the point of view of an own or native language, that clearly it is some mix of what I called mentalese, or the mental processes that can be more or less non-conventional, more or less, let's say, standardized. Somebody thinks in sentences, somebody thinks in pictures, somebody thinks in some mixture of it, somebody thinks in a completely different way. But then we have the output, and as long as the producer of the text, the author, decides to be, let's say, conventional in terms of complying with the paradigm that he produces the text in, then the output is of course conventional. That means complying with the cultural code that the author has decided, or is constrained, or has to, or is in a position of speaking or expressing himself or themselves in. Then in another language, in a different language, non-native, or a let's say cultural code that is another than the native natural language, but a natural language that is a non-native one. Then obviously we still have the contrast that has been just mentioned between the mental processes that happen inside the speaker's or the author's mind, and then the outcome that once the author, which is the case that happens in the majority of cases, and is actually the normalcy, decided to be conventional, or to abide or comply with the cultural code, with the cultural paradigm he is formulating his text in. And the contrast is always there. The most pronounced or outstanding contrast is there of what happens in the mind, and that what comes out as the final outcome. But here in when we speak about non-native languages, ways may differ of how the mentalese is actually formulated or takes place or happens. It can be, there can be, let's say, shortcuts or cheat sheets or some ways that the speaker uses to help them facilitate or simply help them overcome the gap between the native and the non-native. Be it learning things by heart, be it simply using learned phrases that are somehow grafted onto situations, be it some other way, be it some more technical tools or tricks used to get the message across. Definitely that's still the mental background or backup to it, to what happens before the parole, the spoken or the sensory wise perceivable text has been formulated. There's another way as well, which is, in my opinion, interesting, and that's some sort of coming up with a synonymical or constantly same picture or situation, constellation, mind setup for each situation or text that has to be formulated in terms of this or that phenomenon or this or that described thing. And that can be actually translated or formulated into any eventually in any of the languages or culture codes that the speaker, that the author has command of or masters or knows to a smaller or higher degree. What I'm talking about, and what I'll be talking hopefully later on as well in other videos, is a more general topic of synonyms, analogical situations, analogical texts that despite being expressed by different means have always the same meaning, which means, in my understanding, to have a same meaning means to have the same impact, trigger the same mind reactions, mind setup, mind or reactions rather than setup. Setup is something of a longer term, but mind reactions, mind response in the recipient, in the perceiver, no matter what the means used, regardlessly of the code or culture code, language means, language tools means. What I want to say is that there can be a situation or a mind constellation formulated in the author's brain, in the author's mind, that is subsequently translated or formulated in a conventional language that provides the desired impact on the recipient of such a message. And the point is that quite in contrast to these, let's say, cheat sheets or tricks or learned sentences that are always the same and that are used by the speakers who may not have mastered language to the degree that they would have desired, or that would be corresponding to what they're trying to say, that no matter what the situation, they use these sentences, they use these phrases, and they may not always provide the desired effect on the recipient, while others who treat this in a completely opposite way, they formulate, they set up the constellation already in their mind, and then having this image, having this clearly formulated or composed situation, constellation configuration in the mind, they already more relaxedly, more easily render what's on their mind or in their mind into conventional text, into cultural codes, into language, into words, into whatever, painting or music, that no matter how different on each respective opportunity, it always provides, most likely more convincingly, or quite convincingly, quite more successfully, so to say, the desired effect, the same, more or less the same idea or thought or constellation on the recipient that is in the author's mind. So this is in fact how synonyms or analogies are, or exact translations, mental translations or feeling or mental constellation translations are achieved. In my understanding, at least, that means no standardized, except for, of course, some situations, no standardized phrases that match any situation, because the situation is to a huge extent in the author's brain, and that what matches the constellation that is in the author's brain is first the more or less spontaneous flow of words that is used in that each particular situation, but not based on something that has been pre-studied or pre-learned, but that more or less reflects, namely, that how the author feels and what he wants to get across to the recipient by means of translating that particular constellation or configuration that he has in his mind, using the words that more or less come to his mind in that particular moment. But what I want to say is that once the image, the mental image, the mental idea is there, it's more or less stable, or has more or less clear features that somehow exert pressure on the expressing skills, on the expressing mechanisms, and that helps getting that message across. And that as long as this idea or this configuration, this mental configuration is clear to the author, then it can be rendered, translated, formulated in all different languages that he speaks or that they speak, all different kinds of art techniques and similar ways. But what I want to say is it's the mental image or idea that we really wish to translate, not mechanical, not to be given mechanical translations or automated translations of some sentences that we may think may match the situation, and they sometimes and many times do. But what we really wish is to be translating, formulating, rendering the idea that we have in our mind. So to conclude, to give another, maybe third distinction or example, we may say that it's always the dual, complementary duality between what's going on in the mind and what's being formulated. This happens not only in language, but this again applies to all kinds of communication or interaction. So rather than being another example of purely language or language-based communication, it's an example of the inspiration I find in the language as such. I mean, the difference, the contrast or the complementary contrast between the mental processes that precede the formulation. Here is the expression register that I've mentioned elsewhere, borrowed, adapted a little bit from Mike Holliday, who works it off more in detail, elaborates on it. I mean, I've adapted as the sum of mental processes that actually precede the preselections that are happening before shaping up the complete form that is eventually rendered in words. In language, but this is something that is happening, in my opinion, not only on the level or in the domain realm of language, but that actually applies to all cultural codes and communication or interaction as such. But the key, the root inspiration, similarly as in the two before mentioned points, and the general explanation why language and linguistics appeal to me, and I find them very, very, very important and enriching, inspirational, is of course there. I mean, what is formulated or what has been identified in language or rendered, named, categorized by linguistics has, in my understanding, the potential of describing or being used as a description tool for much more than just the language itself.